So I didn't get the official. I have to talk through the mic. Sorry.
Testing. Okay. Hello, everybody. Nice to meet y'all. Some of y'all are familiar faces. I want to thank everybody for coming out today. It means a lot. We are here for the R.I.S.E event, the Reach, Inspire, Self-Empower, and Elevate. Today, we're going to be talking about entrepreneurship for POC, basically people of color. And I want to go ahead and introduce our panelists. We have 3, and we're just going to work our way down the row.
Hey everyone, CEO Bump. We're based in LA. We provide market valuations to creators being defined as TikTokers, YouTubers, Snapchatters. We use those market valuations, number one, to help them understand what their value is when they go into brand deals. But we also use those market valuations to our enterprise partners to provide them with things like automated lines of credit, wealth building products such as life insurance and annuities through our partnerships with companies like Northwestern Mutual. And we have a partnership with MasterCard to provide them with automated lines of credit. We've been around since 2021. Our website, usebump.com. We actually have a partnership that we are a sweepstakes that we're doing right now for creators, and it's in partnership with the Grammys, and the grand prize winner gets a kind of like a red carpet rollout to the Grammys for 2025. So anyway, it's great to be here, and looking forward to telling you guys more about what we're building and also to answer any questions that you guys may have.
Awesome. My name is Allan Njoroge. I'm the founder and CEO of Actriv Healthcare. At Actriv, we help healthcare facilities or healthcare organizations connect with clinicians in real time. So we are more of a workforce as a service company. And so whenever any healthcare system has a shortage, especially now that we have a huge nursing shortage, we're able to provide real-time services. So it's all dispatched out through technology, and for the nurses that we already have onboarded, they can be able to accept shifts, go to work and get paid. So we provide the nurses with freedom and flexibility to pick and choose where they want to work, how far they want to drive, how much money they want to make. So it's more control in their hands and empowering them to be able to go help the local communities whenever they have a shortage. And I'm excited to be here with this great panel. So thank you for being here.
Hello, everyone. My name is James Keith. I'm the founder of Keith James, the luxury fashion brand. My claim to fame is the red bottom hat. Started a business around almost 9 years ago.
Okay, so today I would like this conversation to kind of cover all sectors of basically starting your journey as an entrepreneur, from early stages to funding to scaling to IP. So let's go ahead and start with the early stages. This is a question open to all. Basically, how do you know when you have lightning in a bottle?
I'll start. I don't know if there's like a real way of knowing outside of just like, maybe looking at your personal experiences. I think that's how Bump started. I mean, my dad was a software engineer. By day, he was also a musician on weekends. And so he would complain because we were going up and down the East Coast to different churches where he would sing, he'd preach, he'd teach music. And he would complain at nights about like how he couldn't track like how much the churches owed him. And, that was a big problem for him. And I initially thought it was just a church issue. It's like, well, maybe that's the end of it. But, just as a kid, you just want to make your parents proud, right? And so like you start thinking about ways that you can potentially solve that problem. So fast forward to being an entertainment lawyer. So I know there's a lot of lawyers or folks that work at law firms in here. I have a JD. And also I'm licensed to practice in Florida. But I did entertainment law, and so like my clients used to tell me how they just feared about. They had a lot of fear around, whether or not they'll be able to grow wealth, they'll be able to pass things down from one generation to another generation. They had a lot of questions around like, how do I protect my assets? I know this is we're going to talk about IP in a second, and so I just kind of dove a little bit deeper into that and said, well, I'm just one lawyer, right? I wonder if there's something I can build, going back to that technical background, that could potentially solve this particular problem around wealth growing, around wealth building, around protecting assets for creatives. And so, when you hear it over and over again, you start thinking maybe there's something there, right? And the main thing was just, this is a problem. How big is this problem? Is it big enough for me to solve with some type of technology, some type of some type of innovation that could potentially help more than just the folks that I'm dealing with, right? And so from there, it was just a matter of like doing surveys, talking to bigger groups of folks, potential customers, and that's kind of when wait a minute, there may be something here. And then after that, it's just, how do I get the resources to create this, right? And so, and what do I want to create, and how is this going to look? And those all become the challenges, but you just have to figure out a way to make it all work, right? So you lean on your network, you lean on research, and you kind of go from there. But that's when you know that you should scratch the itch. Like, you just have, it seems like there's a pain that a lot of folks are dealing with, and you then can figure out, is this something that I could build to, and is there a solution that exists, or is there a solution that I can build to help solve these problems?
That's actually a very good point. I think the best businesses are usually built out of personal experiences, and it's actually something that you see and you believe it's out of place, and then you want to fix it. For me, I was a patient, and being on the other side of the healthcare system, I realized how broken it was. Because I was actually admitted, and I was there for an overnight stay, and then I indulged in a conversation with one of the nurses that was taking care of me. And I asked her the question why she was working longer than 12 hours. And she told me that the person that was supposed to come and relieve her didn't show up. So she just had to keep working. And I thought that's not the way it's supposed to be, because in the world where I came from, I've been in the defense industry, renewable energy, and none of that. If you show up and you do what you're supposed to do, and it doesn't affect anybody else. But in healthcare, when you don't show up, it affects other people and it affects the patients. And so I thought maybe I could actually fix this. So in a conversation, I asked her, is there like an Uber for nursing? She was like, I don't think it's great if somebody invented that. And that was my moment, because I had just built a company around blue collar on demand. It was an application that allowed blue collar workers to connect with blue collar opportunities, but it was very early in its stages that getting adoption was very, very hard. But then the same concept could have easily worked in healthcare. And so I embarked on this journey to actually solve the problem. And so I went and started a company, and I didn't have the resources to be able to build out a full-blown company. So I worked with the limited resources that I had, and I tried to find rudimentary technology that was off the shelf that could actually help me build my MVP. And I tested the hypothesis. I realized that someone was willing to pay me to make those connections. And matter of fact, for us, it was very simple. We actually use Google Hangouts. Google Hangouts had a product called Google Voice that allowed you to send text messages. So I figured if I get a client to tell me all the needs they had, and then I send out a bunch of text messages to people saying, hey, we have this opportunity, and all they had to do is say yes or no. And it was very easy. So we did that until Google shut us down. But at least it was a very easy way for us to get started and prove that there was actually a need for such services. So there's no one moment where it's not like an aha moment. I think it's just personal experiences, and you feel the need to actually solve a problem. And if there's a big problem, a big service obtainable market, or there's enough there for you to build something, then you pursue it. And then, like you said, you start finding resources, whether you go get a loan from a friend or raise money from a relative or tap into the VC community or a good angel, then that's how you get started.
Yeah, for me, I knew I found lightning in a bottle. Being in the fashion industry, is getting compliments from strangers. And I feel like, to get a compliment from somebody that you don't know, it's a little different than getting a compliment from your family members or your friends. So once I did the prototype of my hat, I wore it out one night and I stood by the bar and I got 5 different compliments from 5 different people about my outfit. And the only thing I had on was pretty much all black and just my hat. So I kind of knew I had something from that moment, and then I just created a brand from there.
Okay, and I'm gonna just carry that conversation right there. So what would you say is the mindset, or we could even go on to say the level of confidence you have to have when you realize you have a good idea, but you may not be confident in the sense of, can I actually pursue it? Am I capable of achieving these things? Am I capable of learning how to start? The discipline that comes into even beginning the process.
I mean, I think for me personally, I just don't care. I mean, I really don't. I just, whatever comes to my mind, I try to make sure I, carry it out. Because a lot of times we second guess ourselves as human beings, and we already know the answer. So I just try not to second guess myself when something comes to my head.
For me, I think I have this concept called do it afraid. And it doesn't matter how scared I am, I still do it. On the other side, it looks like I have all the confidence to do it, but I'm doing it so scared. But it's just, that's the way to do it. You just have to believe in yourself. And even when you're scared, you just take that leap of faith and keep putting one foot in front of the other and just keep going.
Yeah, I think just kind of echoing what everyone just said. I mean, you have to be super confident, right? I mean, you have to know that, even out of fear, you have to act, right? You have to still, kind of cast those fears aside and say, you know what, I may not have all the answers right now, but I'm going to figure this out. And I'm going to, bring in the resources that I need, or I'm going to trust that what I'm feeling, this hunch that I have, this intuition, this is going to pay off in some way, right? And a lot of it is just, kind of thinking about why you're doing this in the first place. What's your why, right? You're doing it because, and in my case, I'm doing it because I'm getting tired of people crying on my shirt, right? Talking about, I don't know how to create wealth for my kids, my grandkids, right? I'm getting tired of selling 2 million records, but I only received a $10,000 check, right? Why is that? How is that possible, right? And so if your why is strong enough, then that helps you build the confidence to figure out, what I need to do next, and then what I need to do after that. And then next thing you know, you're looking at a big business.
Thank you for that. I wanted to ask next, what are you guys' opinion on breaking down the stigma that you have to, while education is very much important, but that you have to go to college, that you have to have these certain degrees, these qualifications to even set foot before an investor, before a crowd, or anything of that nature?
I think it's largely just, I wouldn't say a myth, but I think anybody, can really start a business, right? I don't think you need to have a certain degree. I mean, there are certain degrees that can be helpful. I actually think it's the opposite. I think the more educated you become, the more you start, having a fear of risk, right? You just start thinking to yourself, okay, I can't do that because what I learned in school was I can't do X, Y, and Z, right? So I actually think, ignorance in some respects is blissful when it comes to business, right? So I think education is important, but education can come in different ways now, right? There's, we talk about it in my circle, we call it YouTube University, right? So it's you don't have to get a formal degree, but you can just look at videos and you can pretty much learn how to do anything these days, right? TikTok videos. I mean, there's, Instagram, there's so many ways for you to gain knowledge without having that fancy degree. Now, obviously, if you're going to be a lawyer, doctor, engineer, there are obviously educational requirements, but in terms of starting a business, and there's so many stories of folks that have high school educations, or that, maybe even dropped out of college or dropped out of high school, whatever, that went on to be successful in business, right? So a lot of it is just your determination to learn. And I don't think in a lot of time, I don't think in a lot of cases, school actually helps you become like a business person. I think it helps you become trainable and for you to do a job well, but not necessarily for you to run a business well.
Yeah, so basically, you don't believe in school. No, I'm just messing.
Believe in education.
Nah, yeah, for me, I mean, like you said, yeah, pretty much if you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer, school is it. But if you're trying to run a business, I think the best way is just jump into it and be hands-on. If you got something that somebody that's doing a business or something that you're interested in, go work for them. That way you can learn how they, handle their day-to-day process. That's pretty much what I think.
I believe education is important. If you're in school pursuing a degree, go ahead and finish that, because it gives you a sense of discipline and structure, and you get to learn a few things even about yourself. The idea that you can commit to something and take it all the way through. However, in business, you need more than education. You need a lot of knowledge, and that's something you're going to learn how to acquire in the most unconventional ways. Like you said, YouTube is one of the greatest places to learn. I spend an enormous amount of time on YouTube looking at some of the people that I look up to. It's hard to get close to someone that is extremely successful and you want to emulate, but you can watch a few videos on YouTube and study their mindset. And so it's important to understand that there is a huge distinction between education and knowledge. And I highly encourage the people that are trying to build businesses or to become an entrepreneur, you need to pursue a lot of knowledge. Knowledge helps you unlock things that you didn't know, and it helps create a lot of opportunities for you. So definitely learn how to read more books, find literacy in topics that you need to be able to grow your business. Financial literacy, legal literacy, understanding marketing and branding. Those are the topics that are very, very relevant to you building your business. And those are the things that you should actually really try to study. The rest of it, business is going to educate you. I think by the time you start a company 2-3 years down, you have a master's in business because it will really teach you so much. You get to learn hands-on more than you ever learn in any classroom.
Just to add to that, I think the other part of this is there are a lot of things that you have to unlearn too, right? Because the thing about formal training, being in school, it teaches you, again, teaches you to do well on a job, right? But business is not like that, right? You can't go to chapter 5 and say, I'm thinking about hiring this person. Like, what should I do? I mean, these are things that you learn on the fly, right? These are things that you learn. You have to be in the trenches to do that, right? And so there's also a lot of unlearning depending on how far you've gone in education that you have to do. It doesn't mean that you have to stop learning. It doesn't mean that education isn't important. It's just that there are certain things that there are certain skills that you have to acquire, or certain things that you have to do in business that doesn't necessarily translate into having a job, right? So.
Okay. So you guys basically work in drastically different sectors from one another. We have finance, software, fashion. So your beginnings are most likely drastically different. So what I want to hear now is, were there any resources such as mentorships, incubators, or even your own parents giving you words of encouragement along the way that really stuck out to you and you would say was pivotal in your transition to being an entrepreneur?
For me, when I started out, I tried to talk to anybody that ran a business. It didn't matter if they were running a small cafe or they were running a multi-billion or million-dollar company. I just asked questions. That's why I started getting my free mentorship. I think people have the wrong perception about mentorship. If you formally ask an entrepreneur for you to be their mentor, they might say no because they're very busy. But if you ask them a question that you're trying to find an answer to, they'll give you the answer. So I never formally asked anybody to be my mentor because I knew they wouldn't agree to it, but I always asked, so how do you manage payroll? what software you use to do payroll, how do you provide benefits to your employees. So that was my approach. And then somewhere along the way, I was able to afford to hire an executive coach. And it's the best gift that I ever gave myself as an entrepreneur, because you don't know what you don't know. And as much as everybody in the organization looks up to you and believes that you should have all the answers, there are times you don't. And you can't go back and ask some of the people that are looking up to you. So you lean on someone else to give you that guidance and mentorship. And so I've had an executive coach that I've retained for years, and we have a session every week, and I get to talk to him about some of the challenges that I have, and he walks me through my limitations, because most of the challenges you have as an entrepreneur have nothing to do with the business. They have everything to do with the way you're thinking about that particular problem. And so having someone that helps you navigate your own mindset, it's super critical. And then I spend a lot of time reading and learning. I read about a book a week. And so I consume an enormous amount of knowledge. And if I'm not reading a book, I'm listening to a podcast in my car if I'm driving to work. Because in business, there's so much you need to learn to be able to really run a successful business. So you constantly have to keep acquiring knowledge from anybody that has ever done it, been there, done it, published a book about it. So that's how I go about it. What was the question?
What were your what resources did you use when you first got started?
The resources that I used pretty much was my dad. I mean, him being there to help me financially, because I mean, you know, when you start a business, you're gonna need some type of capital, and you know, dreams don't pay the rent. So you know, sometimes you fall short. But having that backbone from my dad was helpful, because he was an entrepreneur. That was pretty much what it is.
For me, I mean, mentors and coaches are like the everything, the end all be all, right? Because I think sometimes you think that, you know, you have to know someone like physically, but like Allan mentioned, like I'm like him too. Like every waking moment I'm listening to a podcast, or I'm listening to an audiobook, I'm reading about, you know, reading and learning from highly successful people, right? And so they have become my mentors, even though I haven't actually met them. And the other thing is, like, I watch a lot of sports in my free time. And so, like, you think about, like, your favorite athlete, right? They all had coaches. They all have coaches. And so why not us, right? And so when you have that type of mindset where it's like, oh, the people that I see on TV that are performing at the highest level sports-wise, they have coaches. You know, and they have multiple coaches in some respects, right? And so for me, it's like, why would I not have a coach? Why would I not have mentors? And so I think it started with my uncle. I remember one time we were in Tampa, Florida, and he was asking me, like, you know, what kind of business do you want to start? He didn't say what kind of job do you want to have. He didn't say, you know, when you graduate from law school, like, what law firm do you want to work at? He said, what type of business do you want to own, right? And so I think that was probably one of the first times that someone actually just kind of asked me about being in business. And that's when, like, the wheels started turning, right? It was like, okay, well, you know what? Yeah, I can start a business. Now everything else becomes get rid of the fear and let's figure out how to do this, right? And more importantly, like, you know, what's the problem that I'm really going to be solving, right, at scale? Right? And so, but, you know, I've had a lot of different mentors. You know, I think it's also the right type of mentors too, right? It's the people that can really provide the knowledge and provide the expertise that you need. So it's kind of like you're constantly leveling up, right? You're constantly looking for someone or some people, right? Resources that can help you continue to level up, right? Because on this journey, it's about continuing to get better and better, continuing, and your business needs that, right? Your business needs for you to grow. You are the face of the business. You are the founder, or you have a founding team. And so a lot of your customers, a lot of the other employees, they're relying on you to be at your best. And the way that you become your best and be at your best is by having the resources around you to do that.
Thank you. Okay, so we covered discovering your idea, developing a support system, and basically getting the courage to try. What I want to talk about now is the hard part: funding, raising capital, really getting that prototype in front of the people, in front of the masses. And I know you guys have experiences with, several rounds of funding, whether that be from your own pre-seeding, seeding, Series A, all the. But I really kind of just want to talk about a high level of putting yourself in front of those investors, or putting yourself in front of the masses to promote your product, and kind of giving an insight on that's like, especially from an early stage.
Yeah, I mean, for the hardest thing that you can do is convince people to part ways with their hard-earned money, right? So whatever you're building, and before you are able to do that, you just have a hobby, right? When people can confidently part ways with their money and pay for your product or service, you're in business, right? So that's one thing. There's a customer side, but then there's also like the outside investor side. So my company's raised a couple rounds of funding. We raised 1.5 million for our pre-seed round. We raised 3 million for our seed round. And just going back to that point about like having confidence, imagine talking to 100 people and everyone is like, they want to find a reason to say no, right? And so that's what it's like trying to raise capital. You have a bunch of people that are looking for ways to say no. You have to have the tough skin to say, you know what, even though you say no, and you may or may not tell me the reason why you said no, I still have to keep pushing forward, right? And then you're kind of looking for that one or two investors that are just like, you know what, I think even though the idea may still be, in its early stages, I believe in you. I believe in your team, right? And so it's definitely super hard to raise money. I think there's some stats about like, less than 1% of companies end up raising, venture capital funds or outside funds. And unfortunately, it's even less depending on like your background. But at the end of the day, like it's all part for the course, right? It toughens you, and you have to understand that that's part of the journey. You're asking people for their money, right? So they have the right to judge you and say, hey, I don't like your business idea, especially some of these VCs that have, thousands of other companies that they're looking at every single year, right? And so they are looking for the best. They're looking for the home runs, and you have to be able to provide that home run to them, right? In the form of storytelling, in the form of your idea, in the form of, the metrics, the traction that you have, within your business. But it's definitely super hard, but obviously it's not something that can't be overcome.
For me, that's a hurdle that I haven't got to yet. I bootstrapped my company from I started with $8,900, and I just kept flipping it to get to where I'm at now. Funding is something that I'll probably be interested in. I think to take the company to the next level. So it's probably something that I'll start to entertain to see how it goes.
I've been able to do both, where initially when I started my company, I had to bootstrap. And we bootstrapped until we knew that we were at the point where we needed to take the company to a whole different level, where taking anybody's investment was about giving a very high return for their money, as well as helping us accelerate how fast we were growing. But initially, if you can find a way as an entrepreneur to bootstrap your company, that's the best way to go. Because every time you get a VC to write you a check, you're actually giving up a piece of your company. And so before you can give up so much of it, learn how to try to make the best out of your company on your own. Best companies are the ones, actually the companies that get easily funded by VCs or get acquired by private equity or growth equity companies. What they do is they demonstrate a lot of traction and a lot of EBITDA. Like, you're able to build a very sustainable business. You have revenue, you have EBITDA, and you've consistently done that over an extended period of time. At that point, you're a very, very attractive company to anybody that wants to write you a check. What I see, the biggest mistake is people have ideas and then they write a pitch deck and they believe that that pitch deck is everything it takes to convince an investor. There's so much that goes into convincing someone to part ways with their money. You have to really understand the business that you're trying to get in. You have to understand the unit economics of what it takes to run such a company. Customer acquisition costs. What is the cost of one customer, and how much are you going to be able to spend to retain that customer or to keep running your business? Because not every idea is worth a lot of money, even though it sounds good and you might be able to make money, but you might lose a lot of money trying to do that. So understanding the fundamentals of business makes it very easy for you to convince investors to give you money. It's a whole, it's a very taxing process for the founders, because raising money actually takes time away from you running the business. So before you embark on such a journey, you have to really be prepared psychologically for what it takes to get as many no's, because you are going to get a lot of no's. You're going to be constantly on calls trying to recite and pitch over and over and over again. So you have to really, really be prepared for that journey. But at the same time, you still have to keep building your business, because some of the investors you talk to would not say yes immediately, and in 6 months they might request to have a meeting with you again. And you have to show that between those 6 months that you had a conversation, you actually made progress. So if you had 1,000 users in 6 months, you better be at 6,000, or they will just say no. So you have to do both the two things at the same time. So before you can embark on raising money, spend a lot of time getting the fundamentals of your business right before asking anybody to part ways with your hard-earned dollars.
Just really quick follow-up on that. I think the other thing is there are a lot of headlines that are really sexy, right? You know, this company raised $10 million, this company raised $1 million, this company raised $5 million. And those headlines are attention grabbers, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. You know, it may have taken them 2 years to do that, or it may have taken them 6 months, and like Allan and I just mentioned, 200 no's, right? Before they were able to get to 1 or 2 yeses, right? So those headlines don't tell the entire story, right? And I think the entire story, going just quickly back into bootstrapping, is you also don't know if those founders or that founder also bootstrap. I'm a big proponent and a big fan of bootstrapping. We bootstrapped for a few months to prove out the idea, to get the ball rolling, if you will, before we started talking to outside investors. And because of mentors, I knew that there were probably going to be a lot of no's, right? And so but having some traction, having proof of concept actually helped, with some of those uncomfortable conversations we were having with investors. But yeah, there are just a lot of sexy, splashy headlines that just don't tell the full story.
I want to carry on the conversation about bootstrapping a little bit more. If you guys could elaborate on that and what it is, and basically even just kind of cover maybe some of the common financial pitfalls people may fall in at the early stage trying to bootstrap and get funding for their business while also trying to pay their own bills.
Yeah, for me, currently I'm still bootstrapping, if you want to be honest. 9 years, I still got to look at my finances to make sure, because you got a lifestyle that you got to live too as well when you got a business. So you got to always, for me, business and personal goes together, because I'm into fashion. So I got to make sure I look good. So I got to make sure I spend money on clothes. I got to spend money on certain things. So it's a lifestyle that I buy into as well. So for that's kind of how I look at it.
So I think when you're bootstrapping, it's very difficult to know when the money is going to run out. So because you have very limited resources to actually do whatever it is that you're doing. And one of the things that you really have to spend a lot of time doing if you're bootstrapping is trying to figure out how to get so much money from your customers. That's the best advice that I can give anybody, because whether you took a loan from your house or you borrowed the money or whatever the source of funds initially that you borrowed, you're gonna burn through that if you don't start making money. So from day one, before you actually start bootstrapping any company, you have to figure out how to make money. Like, what is the distance from your service or your product to earning cash from your customers? You have to be very, very clear on what it takes to be able to do that. And you have to work extremely hard if you're bootstrapping, extremely hard, because you're gonna be probably the one doing your own billing, providing customer support. If you're developing a software, you're still the same person that gets to write the code. You still have to do your own collection. So you're gonna do a lot. And that's part of bootstrapping. You are gonna be the labor that it takes to actually build your business because you can't outsource. But some of the smart founders that are out there are the ones that know how to get also free labor. If you have friends that are very good, convince them. If you believe in your idea, ask them. They might have a skill. Leverage your parents. You know, as my first employee was my mom. Actually, when I signed my first contract, I called her and I said, "Hey, Mom, I think we just signed a contract and they need a nurse right now. So I think you should put on your scrubs and come to work." And she showed up, and after she finished the shift, I told her, "I don't think I can pay you. So you're gonna have to wait until I get paid from the clients for me to pay you." So that's the reality of what you have to do when you're starting to build a company. You have to leverage people as well. And good entrepreneurs are the ones that know how to convince other people. My startup before I did Actriv was called Eldo Hire, and I had a team of 12 people. All of them were software engineers. Bad idea, but none of us got paid, and everybody worked for free. But the only reason why everybody showed up and worked for free is because we had a big vision for the product. We wanted to connect more people with opportunities. Our mission was very clear, and we all just had fun sitting down and eating pizza and sitting in the middle of my living room just coding and just whiteboarding. And it was not about building a company. We were actually just building a community where we all belonged and we accepted each other and we wanted to do something cool. So sometimes bootstrapping is not so much about the money part, it's also about you using your social capital to be able to build something remarkable and put your mission out in the world. So if you can be able to convince people to join your mission and work for free, it's also part of bootstrapping.
So like I mentioned, I'm a big fan of bootstrapping. I think it causes you to focus, right? Because you don't have a lot of resources. And thinking about bootstrapping within the context of financial bootstrapping, I think sometimes it works against you when you actually get outside capital and you get so much of it, because now you're like, how can I put all this capital to use, right? And so you actually probably make more mistakes because you have so much money to work with than if you were focused as a bootstrapper. So yeah, I think bootstrapping, if that's obviously, if you can raise outside capital, that's great. But there certainly isn't anything wrong with bootstrapping, especially in the earliest stages. As a matter of fact, to Allan's point, or James's point, like you actually save, like you own more equity in your company. You're not giving away equity. You don't give away a piece of your company, which is what happens when you raise outside capital. I think the other thing is it causes you to focus. It causes you to think about friends and family that can help you out. Really lean into your network. And there's a famous picture of Jeff Bezos, right? When he decided to start Amazon, he's like at a computer in his garage, and he has like Amazon.com, I think, written in like handwritten on the wall, right? And so that's also the fun thing about like bootstrapping, right? Because you're like at the earliest stages, and like Allan mentioned, you're having pizza with folks, and you have these great memories, and there are a lot of stories where people took photos. It's like I'm the first hire. I was the first employee before, and I wasn't getting paid anything, but we built this great company now, and I was employee number 10. Like there are a lot of stories that come out of that, and a lot of those stories come out of a bootstrapping experience.
Okay, so now my next question is from a person of color standpoint. This covers topics from presenting yourself in front of investors or just other business opportunities for partnership, anything of that nature. When it comes to putting yourself in a predominantly white space, right? How do you deal, and have you had any specific experience, things of racism or microaggression within the space when you're trying to present yourself? Do you feel like there's any stereotypical comments, actions, or anything of that nature that may, impact you, and how do you handle those situations?
Myself personally, I haven't really encountered anything. Not to just pinpoint. So I'm probably confident. Yeah. So.
I haven't encountered anything as a black person. Actually, for me, I'll probably say that I have an accent. So I have a Kenyan accent. So I'm not only black, but I also have an accent too. But I think those are limitations that we put on ourselves when we try to use who we are to justify why we can lean into our greatness. So I feel like the moment you walk into any room and just believe you have everything it takes to be there, and you're working on something remarkable, then you are going to be given a chance based on the content that you're bringing to the table, not your skin color, not your accent, not your origin. It's just, what is the size of the problem you're trying to solve, and do you have a viable solution for what the marketplace needs? And so the rest of it is more personal, that you have to overcome that yourself. And I had to go through that. So I wouldn't lie, it was not so much what came from outside, but what came from within myself, where I thought I had those limitations as an immigrant who came from a different country, and I have an accent, and I'm black. So I had to personally work on myself more and try to overcome my personal barriers and say, you have what it takes. You can actually do this, and lean into those fears and actually step into my greatness and go out there and pursue my vision. So I think to your answer, it's more inwards, that you have to work on your mindset than what the environment presents you. If you walk in a room and you think you're black, you're actually going to be black. But if you walk in a room and you're just a citizen of the world trying to do some good, then you're just a person trying to do good.
Yeah, I mean, it exists, right? I mean, racial discrimination exists, gender discrimination exists. These are things that we know exist. But at the end of the day, it's like, focusing on what's within your control and not really worried about what's out of your control, right? Some of these things, you can't change a person's mindset. And that goes across races, it goes across gender. I mean, like, there are just some people that feel a certain way about certain people, and it is what it is. But I think, from a business perspective, you have to ask yourself, am I going to let this stop me, right? What's the bigger picture here, right? And we also know that there are people that are really supportive of, races, genders. And so it's just a matter of, like, I think, like Allan mentioned, it starts with your mindset, right? It starts with your mind. Am I going to go into this meeting with the mindset that they're going to discriminate against me, right? Why are you even thinking that, right? Instead of thinking like that, think about, like, how you're going to secure this, this investment, or think about how you're going to, in the long run, over the next 10 investors, even if this one rogue investor is a certain way, that's just it. He's a rogue or she's a rogue investor, right? So, or a customer, right? So I think it really comes down to the way that you think about things and the way that you approach things. And I think we also are all very fortunate that society is progressing and advancing in a way that, hopefully these barriers are starting to go away, right? And I think more importantly, all of us are examples, even everyone in this room, we're all examples of how, despite all this history of discrimination, whether it's race, gender, whatever age, like, we still are here, we're still present, and we're still doing great things in this world, right? We're providing value in this world. So I think it starts with the mindset, and it starts with, like, how you approach things and how you think about things. And so that's how I think about things.
do you guys have advice for those, like you said, some of it comes from within, right? So do you guys have advice of how to get out of that headspace? Because, representation does matter. If you saw more of it, probably have less of those stigmas that you place onto yourself. But, and it's growing, like you said, it's on the rise. But do you guys have any advice for mental health in that sense of just trying to be confident enough to say, I do deserve this, I am capable of these things. Doesn't matter my background, doesn't matter any type of stereotypical tragedies that have happened, but how to persevere.
It starts with you. I mean, you have to work on yourself, right? So that could be finding a therapist. When you hear about like addicts, right? They when they go through these programs, they say the first thing you have to do is you have to admit that you have a problem, right? So you kind of have to look at yourself and say, you know what? I wouldn't say it's a problem, obviously, but it's something that you need to address. So you say, this is something I need to address. I need to change my mindset, and I need to find out who can help me do that. Whether it's reading a book, whether that's like, seeking out professional help, but you have to start with yourself. And of course, it's not easy. I mean, we all have dealt with some type of trauma, right? Some deeper than others. But I think, you look inward and say, look, I'm going to be strong enough to overcome this, right? And then I think beyond that, you start looking at different circles that you can be a part of, right? Different support groups that you can be a part of, so that you can overcome this. But I think, it's certainly not easy, and it doesn't mean that these problems should not be addressed. And I think they certainly need to be addressed. And these are at the societal level, more so at the individual level. But I think there are certain things that we can work on as individuals too, to help us guard against those societal issues that obviously need to be addressed.
I personally believe in being the change that you want to see in the society. And if you want to see a world that is better than the one that we've lived in, you become part of that change. And part of that is just the way you show up in that world, what you stand for. If you don't stand for anything, you stand for nothing. So if you stand for equality, then you be about equality, and you exemplify everything about equality. And so at Actriv, we have a very in our manifesto for the people that join the company. We don't talk about diversity and inclusion, even though I feel like it's been overhyped and misused. So we have this concept about belonging at Actriv, where everybody matters. It doesn't matter your religion, your gender, your skin color. And I think I personally believe that our organization is one of the most diverse organizations out there, because we work with a lot of people from various backgrounds. And so it starts with you showing the world what you want it to be. So for us as a company, we had to change. I didn't even realize that we only had one holiday, religious holiday, that was more geared towards Christians, until we hired people that were Muslims, and we realized that we didn't think about them. And so Belong at Actriv was about changing to make sure that even the people that were Muslims that joined our culture, we recognize that their holidays. And so we changed our holiday policies to be able to show that we are the change that we want to see in the world that we are in. And the other part is just, when you work on yourself and you work on being the best version of you, somehow you unconsciously give permission to other people to do the same. And so the way you show up in the world and be a genuinely good human being, then somehow other people, through your actions, can be better human beings. Whether it's your coworkers or it's your employees or it's the way you treat the person at the grocery store, it all starts with all of us. And so it's not that these things don't exist. They do exist, and we acknowledge they exist. But acknowledging they exist is not the solution to the problem, but it's how we, as one person, just show up in the world and just make a difference in that small circle that you're a part of. That's how the change, that's how we're going to drive the culture and the behaviors we want in humanity. It's not through just advocating and saying, yeah, I'm all about diversity and inclusivity, but then your behaviors don't stand for that. I think it starts with all of us. It starts with you working on yourself and actually being better.
Yeah, pretty much. What the guy said. I think it's like I said, having an open mind, and I have a very positive mindset. So I kind of look at everything from positive perspective. And I have some groups I'm a leader, and some groups I'm a leader in a group of followers. I'm a follower in a leader group. So I just got different type of people around, and you learn from everybody. I learn from everybody. I talk to people all day long, and I think just having an open mind.
Sorry, add one more thing. You mentioned like your setup of your organization. We're a team of 13, and most of our team members are women. We have Asian, white, black. I mean, every stripe, every race in our organization. And just kind of piggybacking off what Allan said, like we have to be the change that we want to see in the world, right? And so it was important for me to make sure that I'm surrounded by the best minds that happen to be women, that happen to be Asian, that happen to be white. I mean, I wanted to make sure that I was surrounded by all the best minds, regardless of their backgrounds, right? But the other part of this is when we have meetings and we're learning about each other's cultures and our backgrounds, everyone becomes educated, right? Like Allan mentioned, a lot of the holidays that were being celebrated in his company were Christian-based, right? Now he's hiring, employees of Muslim faith, and now he's learning about Muslim holidays. That's the beautiful thing about being in business, right? Because now you can make those rules. Now you can say, you know what, I want to hire certain people that can contribute to the entire diverse part of my organization, but we're going to make it so that we can all learn from each other, right? So that's one of the powerful things about also being in business.
Okay, so we've covered, you've got a good idea. You figured out your funding, you got the confidence now. You probably put your product out there. Now what? How do you keep the momentum going? Scaling, right? So for this topic, I kind of want you guys to, even if you just give the highlights of key factors that you think are important when it comes to scaling, or just keeping, not everybody has to want to be global, worldwide. You might want to just keep it local and everything like that. But when it comes to keeping that momentum going, when it comes to growing your team, when it comes to letting people in partnerships of that nature, the importance of things of like legal literacy, financial literacy, and just any kind of key factors like that stick out.
For me, it's hiring the best people. Put the best people around you, put the best legal around you, put the best marketing people around you, and so on and so forth. But it's always you want to stay innovative, and you want to stay ahead of the curve, and you always want to think of the next thing. And that might be something that sometimes you think of stuff, you don't put it out right, then you hold on to it for a little bit until the time comes. You don't gotta go run and do everything at the same time. You can hold some stuff, and then you can roll it out a year or two later.
I think the way I look at scaling is that for you to really scale an organization, you have to learn how to do things that don't scale. It's counterintuitive, right? And what I mean by that is if you're trying to serve a huge population, it's very, very hard initially to just go out and figure out what it takes to serve an entire that type of population. But when you take a small subset and then you really A/B test, get to understand that user persona in depth, get to know their problem, talk to them, get a lot of feedback. And sometimes, like for instance, we just released another software called ShiftNext. It's an AI workforce marketplace. And so for us to develop that product, we actually had to spend a lot of time talking to customers. And we had to do things that don't scale, like going to literally sit with them and watch them work with the application and then collect feedback and actually hear them tell you where you got it wrong, what you should do better. And then we go back to the drawing board, and then we come up with another plan, take it back to the market, A/B test it, and then go back. And once we have it figured out and we know we have a product that is scalable, then at that point in time, now we must deploy that. But also scaling is very risky. If you do it wrong, which I have done it wrong, when you start growing too fast, you hit a ceiling if you didn't have the right infrastructure in your business, when you didn't think through the team. And as a team grows, you need to keep supporting your product. You need to make sure that your customers are getting the best customer service. So we didn't think through some of those things very, very well. So when we started scaling, we hit a glass ceiling. And that was the limitations that we had not thought about prior. And so that's when we learned this philosophy of, let's try to do things that don't scale to understand how we can really, really scale very well. And then when we worked out the kinks out of our product, now we were ready to start scaling, and we were able to start moving much, much faster. And that's how our company is actually one of the companies that is ranked as the fastest growing companies in America 4 years in a row, according to Inc. And that didn't just happen. We had to really spend a lot of time how to get these, to get it right, how to deploy our products into different markets. And when you do that, you have to constantly keep talking to your users. And talking to your users is expensive because there's a time constraint. You can only talk to so many of them, but you constantly have to keep doing that. So I think to scale, or my best advice to anybody is learn how to do things that don't scale if you want to build a scalable product.
Yeah, I'll just quickly add, I mean, scaling is a beautiful thing if you're in business, but it's also a scary thing, right? Because if you're doing it, and there's no, one concrete way to skin a cat, right? You can do it many different ways, but just thinking about it from the standpoint, for example, of, hiring, right? Now you have people that you have to pay them a salary, and they have family, they have a lifestyle that they have that they want to make sure that they maintain or that they can create for themselves. So now you have to think about like creating great jobs. You have to think about like the people that you want to attract to your company. Are you going to pay above market? Is it going to be a bonus structure, equity, salary, cash? So there are a lot of things that you have to think through, which is a beautiful thing because you have to kind of pat yourself on the back and say, I'm in a position to do this. This is amazing, right? Same thing with customers. You have a fast growing customer base. So now you're thinking about, do I need to hire more salespeople? Do I need to hire more, customer success people? How many do I need to hire? And these may not be answers that you readily know how to answer. These may be questions that you may not know how to readily answer. But that's all part and parcel of this journey. And so scaling is definitely a beautiful thing. And like what Allan just mentioned, like doing the things that don't scale, right? Like when you're thinking about acquiring new customers, that's something that we think about all the time. We have 15,000 creatives on our platform. How do we get to 50,000? How do we get to 20,000? Right? And setting these goals and motivating your team to push and to get there. Right? We just recently We recently hired a finance lead. She came from Snapchat, right? And she was at a startup called Caldwell before. And part of the decision making for that was, okay, we are revenue positive now. I need to understand burn, right? I need to understand runway. Do I have enough runway to hire a product lead or hire make another key hire, right? So these are all great problems to have, but they're still scary, right? But it's a testament to like you being in a position where you now have a business and you have the challenges continue to grow, right? They don't stop, right? You still have these challenges that you have to still address and you have to overcome.
Just to add one more thing, I think when it comes to scaling, you also have to remember that it's not just the business you're scaling, but you also have to scale the team. And we went through this challenge because we built almost 100 and something employees across the globe, and they're all working in 4 different time zones. And that was a very difficult thing to scale because we had to make sure that all these people that we are bringing in, they have to keep up with the culture that actually got us to where we were. And it's not just the company that has to scale, but those people have to scale, and we have to figure out a way to maintain that innovative culture that got us to where we were in the first place. So that is something that we had to spend a lot of time, and that's the reason why we also initially we just grew, and since it's a couple people that we like working with each other, we didn't need to we were just easily governed by the core values and the mission. But as we grew the team, we had to write a manifesto on how we wanted everybody to treat each other, because at this point you have people that are working across different parts of the world that you're never going to sit down when they have conflicts to help them manage the conflict. And so we wrote this manifesto that was very, very clear on how we wanted everybody to treat each other in the company. And we made everybody commit to it. And that was one of the things that actually helped us scale. But before we got to the place we had to do that, we ran into roadblocks because people didn't get along. Because now you've just added 20 new people to a team, and they all come from different companies, different cultures, and they're not getting along. And now the company is not scaling because people have differences. So we had to address that by making sure that there was a very clear set of principles that we all had to live by in order for us to scale. And when we put that into place, everybody now knew their place, and we started growing. So
the last thing I wanted to ask you guys, especially when it comes to keeping that momentum, some of you guys should have experience when it comes with intellectual property, right? From trademarks to patents. What would you say, and feel free to answer if you have particular ties to this, is the importance of protecting your brand when it comes from small ideas, especially when you're working in things such as software technology, all the way to protecting your fashion logo, right? Because some of you may know, have been keeping up with that there is this very famous TikTok star who was a little bit too late to the game in the sense of very demure, very mindful. They were a little too late at trademarking their own phrase that went viral. Everybody's been saying that phrase. Everybody knows that phrase. And it's the craziest thing is because, you know, they were sleeping, a little slept on, somebody else wrongfully applied for it, right? And now it's caused a big hullabaloo about, you know, who does it rightfully belong to, right? Because we do live in a first to file type of system within the United States. So what would you guys say is the importance of protecting those aspects, all the way from simply the actual idea you have for your business itself when it comes to the technological aspect, all the way down to your name?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it allowed me to sleep at night, having that, you know, security to really just be able to, you won't be in a rush. When you got your stuff protected, it's kind of like you can sit down and make the right decision instead of rushing the decision and trying to, you know, jump street and get stuff done and rushing yourself and not doing it the right way when you need to take your time and deliver it in the proper fashion and make it look good. So for me, it was all about just having that comfortability to be able to sleep at night.
We have a few patents. One of them recently got issued around voice AI, and one of the reasons why we came up with an IP strategy is because we wanted to protect all these ideas that we were working on. All of us know the history of Apple and Samsung when Samsung decided to infringe on Apple's trade dress, right? And they ended up paying $1 billion, but that also helped Apple get ahead of the curve while Samsung was working on dealing with the litigation. And so there is value in protecting your intellectual property, especially for us when we are developing AI. AI is a fast evolving world. So we have to go back and protect the fundamentals around how our algorithm works, how we build our models, how we execute, things are executed, and even the way things appear on our platform. As simple as those things sound, if your competitor went ahead and did that, now you have to actually license it from them when it was your idea. So it's very important that you understand the value in intellectual property. The IP itself is also valuable because you can value that and you can borrow money against IP. And that's something that is very common today. If you have very good intellectual property, it can be valued you can raise money instead of actually getting equity or getting just a standard loan, because it's an actual asset. And that's what happened between Motorola used to manufacture phones back in the day. And when they got out of that business and went fully into surveillance, they sold their patents to their IP to Google. And that's what majority of the Google phones are today. They run off Motorola intellectual property. So it's very critical to understand as a founder, those micro ideas or what you think is not patentable, it's always good to protect it. Whether it's just the appearance of how things appear. Everybody knows about the Coke bottle. That's Coke trade dress, and you cannot copy that. And you cannot create another bottle that looks like that. And that gives your brand a very unique identity. So we have a very, besides having like a product roadmap for ourselves, we also have an IP roadmap where we have certain IP that we are protecting as we build out our product, because we want to be competitive. We want to be able to stay ahead of our competitors, and we don't want anybody to copy the products that we are building, especially in AI. You have to do whatever it takes to protect your heart, your thoughts and your ideas and your creativities.
This subject for me is like, I have a legal background, so I love this, but I think it's probably like IP specifically, but legal in general is probably one of the more underappreciated parts of business. I don't know why. I mean, I think sometimes people have issues with like more legal billing, whatever, I'm not sure, but I think it's something that I think about all the time. We're in our earlier stages of our IP portfolio. We have a couple of names we're going to trademark, or we're working on trademarking right now. But one of the things that we did from the beginning is we had every team member sign off on what we call an invention and assignment agreement. So essentially, whatever anyone creates for the company, whatever ideas we come up with, it gets owned by the company, not the individual. So even if they leave the company, the idea stays, or the whatever was built stays with the company, right? And so that was something that we made sure was in place early on. Outside of that, like, we constantly have like competitions where we're going to create this product, we need a name for it. Whoever comes up with the name and we end up using that name and we end up trademarking that name gets a bonus, right? And so we're always thinking about like different types of patents, right? Design patents, system patents. And so it's something that, again, like I mentioned, is underappreciated, but it's definitely, there's so many different things you can do with things that are patented or trademark. I mean, there's obviously the obvious, which is the protection part, but if you want to license it to a larger company, right? There's so many different things that can come out of it. And so it's something that I hold near and dear to my heart, and I make sure that our team understands how important this is. But it's something that is ingrained in our culture, right? Like the culture of the company. So it's something that's really important for us. And I always make it known that, the IP protection and legal in general is super important.
All right, thank you, guys.
To add on to that, one of the things that I've seen with companies, especially if you work with third-party firms, let's say you work with like a web development firm outside of the organization, it's very, very critical that you establish the IP ownership, even if they are working for developing it outside the organization. Initially, setting the right parameters with a very good contractual agreement that says who gets to own that IP is very, very important. There's a lot of lawsuits that exist today around the IP ownership when that was not clearly established. So yes, having a legal team that helps you not just to protect the idea, but also to keep up with it. You also need to make sure that someone is auditing that to make sure that it's not getting infringed on, and that because if that happens, you're losing an opportunity to be able to make revenue out of licensing.
Okay, we covered the early stages all the way to funding to keeping the momentum. So I just want to take the time to thank you guys for being my lovely panelists on our first R.I.S.E event. So please clap it up for them real quick. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to open the floor to any live questions we may have from our audience. You can just raise a hand. I'll give you the mic. Okay.
All right, so just because I'm taking notes here, the thing you said about being able to keep ideas within the company, what is that called? So I can take that.
Oh, it's called an invention and assignment agreement.
Invention and assignment agreement?
Correct.
All right. And then, can I ask my second question?
Yeah.
I guess this is going to be more of a personal question. I'm a business owner myself, and I find that a big thing for me when it comes to being able to scale that could progress this a little faster would be debt relief. So I have credit cards, I have a really high line of credit, and I have a great amount of income coming in. I have other things on the side that have a great amount of income. Is there any way that you know personally in the industry that can potentially alleviate that and put that on a line of credit where I'm having a fixed interest rate that's lower than, because as you know, credit cards, once you hit a certain point, it's like 0% interest. And once you get to that point, they're charging you, that interest. Is there anything that you know right now? I know Meat Tally was a big one, but they recently just closed. So.
I mean, I'm not familiar with any one particular, it sounds like that's more like a debt consolidation type of thing that you're looking for.
Yeah.
I know that there are a number of companies that do that. I can't give a recommendation as to which company is the better one or the best company. And I can't even sitting here now tell you if there is one or several companies that actually, do specifically what you're asking about. But obviously, we have Google, we have ChatGPT. I would say maybe start there. But I'm certainly not an expert on debt consolidation. I can tell you that one way to bootstrap could be using credit cards, and that's pretty common, right? That's one common way of bootstrapping. Other than that, it's just kind of like checking APRs, just understanding is this something I need to pay off in its entirety at the end of the month, or is there a 24 point whatever interest rate that's going to kick in if I don't pay it off, right? If I only pay the minimum balance. So that's just more of a matter of understanding the terms. This is a law firm sponsored event, so talking to a lawyer, right, to help to understand the terms and conditions too.
So I have a question for you. What business are you in?
I actually own a rental car company here in Central Mass.
So do you have EBITDA? Profitability?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So one of the advice that I'll give you is, one, make sure your books look good, and then two, consider taking an SBA loan. They're more fixed term, longer term, 10-year. So if your books look good, you can do that. That's one way of doing it. And then you can also consider companies that do work on factoring receivables. So if you're very consistent in terms of how you're earning your money, you can be able to find companies that specialize in lending against that type of business. But definitely consider taking an SBA loan or working with a local credit union to try to get a line of credit, that a revolving line of credit. It might not be a fixed interest rate. It's a little bit variable, but it's straightforward. It's not like a credit card where they're very, very high. So, but to be able to get there, you need to really invest in very good accounting practices. So work with a very good accountant, make sure your books are very, very clean, they're very organized, and they make sense. Make sure you have very good financial projections and a very good business plan. And so if you have all those components, you can be able to apply for at least an SBA loan. I know that for sure you might be able to qualify for.
Just really quick follow-up. I think their website is called NerdWallet. I think they actually aggregate different types of loans. I would take a look at that. There is also a number of revenue-based financing options. That's just a quick Google search. You'll probably see a bunch of potential options there too. So I would recommend that as well.
All right. I guess, all right. So now with being so far in the business, this is my last one. how hard would it be to get that great accounting practice that you're talking about implemented into my business? Because we've been in business for about 2 years now, and I find that with it it's just me and my mom, no one else. So there's a lot of positions that like we try to do everything, but certain things slack, obviously, because we're spending time on other things. How hard would that be to find someone like an accountant or someone that can give me better books?
So it's not difficult. So there are two school of thoughts. And I'll try to give you one where you are right now and the second one where if you try to build a bigger business. So at the level you are, if you can afford to hire like an accountant full-time, find a fractional accountant, one that you can be able to outsource your books to, and they'll help you manage that. And then two, find a CPA, someone that's going to help you understand the tax guidelines so that you don't do the wrong thing. Penalties are very expensive, and you do not want to get on the wrong side of the IRS. It's a painful journey. For most young entrepreneurs that get into it and they don't understand that, they end up accumulating a lot of debt from the IRS because of poor accounting practices and not the lack of understanding. So really invest in financial knowledge. Spend a lot of time you as a founder first, you need to really understand the best accounting practices at the level you are and also the level you're trying to go. And once you go past this threshold, you might end up hiring an accountant in-house. That's a highly recommended thing. You don't treat your accounting practices as a back office, you actually treat it as your front office. Because that's where your money, everything related to your business is happening. The revenue, the expenses, all that. And you need to really know every single dollar that's coming in and every dollar that's leaving. So you want to treat that as the most critical component of your business at this stage. And if you can afford to hire one full-time and build a very good relationship with them. And as soon as you go past this threshold and you're making a couple $1 million, and you'll know when you get to that point, consider hiring a fractional CFO. There are so many fractional CFO firms that exist out there. And even if you're just going to call them and do a consultation at the level you are, at least it will give you a better understanding of where you're trying to go in the future.
Do you, just a quick follow-up, do you have QuickBooks by chance, or Xero, or one of those types of accounting softwares?
Yes.
Okay, I was going to suggest starting with that too, like, so at least when you do hire an accountant, you have like the basics first, and there's some order to your books for them to take from there to take and provide accounting for you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming out tonight. My name is Camille Seriblay. I'm also a designer. So my first question is to you, James. What really was the catalyst to your marketing strategy? And how did you build a trust into like the technology that we have nowadays, especially with like ads and things of that sort? I find myself not necessarily trusting Facebook marketing and Instagram just because of shadow banning. And so did you take like an organic approach, or did you actually trust those marketing platforms?
Yeah, that's a great question. Mostly for me, I did organic and pretty much guerrilla marketing. I just had a great network of friends that was happy to be, celebrities. So I kind of used that to piggyback off of to build up the momentum for the brand, and I just kept, networking with them. I mean, most celebrities, when you get attached to them, they have other celebrity friends. So if they really like your product, the word of mouth, and it just go viral from there.
I have one more question. Given the tariffs outside of the U.S. and manufacturing issues with that, do you mainly source in the U.S. or do you sourcing like other countries, and how do you go about sourcing for your products?
Mostly in the U.S., but I'm the type of person that I got stuff in India, I got stuff in Italy, China, all over. It's just who could do, the best work for a great price. And a lot of times, when you work with these factories, I was just talking to her. We were talking about it earlier about the manufacturing companies. We small businesses, so they got big businesses. So like you got to fit into their schedule. So the more orders you put in, the more higher you go up on the rankings as far as being able to put your orders in and, for them to really work with you. Because you got to think, there's a lot of people trying to do fashion. So they can't really, deal with everybody. So they're going to just kind of throw you to the side until they see you serious and they see you keep coming back and you keep going with the orders and you keep increasing your orders. And that's how you kind of build a trust with your factories.
Thank you all for sharing your experiences. It's been very, very useful. My name is Melissa. I'm a mindset coach, actually, self-mastery and holistic mental wellness. So one of my questions actually is similar to what she first asked of you. I'd love to invite you both to just share about your go-to-market strategy. I feel like we went right to scaling. I'd love to know, especially if you're bootstrapping or if you were bootstrapping, how you dealt with your go-to-market strategy and how you funded that.
Yeah, for us, we pretty much went, so our customers are TikTokers, YouTubers, Instagrammers. So we just kind of try to understand where they hang out at, right? Like, what are they doing? How are they spending their time? So we spent a lot of time understanding, they're constantly posting on Instagram. They're constantly going to live events. And we started, as of recently, we started doing our own curated dinners, where we invite creatives to tell us more about their pain points. But we, in the beginning, so there's so many things we've done, but in the beginning, we just did something simple. Like we found groups on Facebook. We posted, hey, who's releasing new music this summer? And all of a sudden, like within 10 minutes, you have a bunch of people that are just adding their tracks, right? Adding links to their tracks, whether it's YouTube, whether it's, Spotify, whatever. And so we purposefully followed up with them. So we said, thanks for sending that track. We should hop on a call, right? And, Allan mentioned, doing things that don't scale. That's not something that necessarily scales, but it gave us our first few thousand, creatives on our platform. And it also allowed us to capture the interest and attention of Snapchat. So Snapchat is now one of our partners, right? So that gives us a larger pool of creatives to work with, but it also gives us validation. So in my line of business, there's a lot of scams that come to creatives. And so they're a little skeptical about anything that's new outside of you showing that you have validation. And so, once we had Snapchat, it was like, oh, you work with Snapchat? And then it was MasterCard, right? And now it's the Grammys. We actually have a sweepstakes right now, with the Grammys. And so a lot of it was momentum building, but our initial GTM, go-to-market strategy, was really centered around finding out where our customers, our target customers, where they shopped, what they did, what were their habits, and we just kind of took it from there. By the way, this was all organic. We didn't do any type of paid campaigns or anything in the beginning.
For us, our go-to-market strategy was around building something that was very viral. We wanted people to talk about our product, and we engineered ways within our product for people to keep inviting each other. So it was easy for everybody to just tell someone, hey, have you heard about this company that lets you pick up your own shifts and work your own schedule. And then we did things that were very different as a company. We made sure that we had a very unique selling proposal. So every other company that had worked in the medical staffing space did not provide any sort of benefits to their employees. We tried to understand what truly mattered, and we created a very unique product that had the benefits that the employees wanted. So it was more like full-time employment with a twist of freedom and flexibility, which is everything everybody wanted. And so we focused selling our product as a freedom experience. You just have the choice to be able to go do whatever it is that you want, and you can fit work into your life instead of trying to fit your life into work. So it was very easy for us to do that. So we built a product that was very viral, and then we spent a lot of time meeting the customers, our users, where they were. Like Facebook groups was one of the places that we found to be very unique. There were always both our clients and employees were constantly in those Facebook groups, either looking for jobs. So we just showed up every day, and we were very consistent about posting. Like every single day, we'd post 2 or 3 times. So, and we were, some of them had like WhatsApp groups, whatever groups they were in, we made ourselves a part of that, and we just constantly kept showing up. We didn't spend any dollar in advertisement for the last 4 years. It was just purely organic and tell a friend to tell a friend type of a product. And I think that's one of the things that you should really consider when you're building a product, is engineer a way for the customer acquisition process to be very easy. Someone can invite someone to be part of that. If you're in a marketplace, you make sure it's two-sided. One party can invite the other and earn some sort of reward for doing that, and the other party can also do the same. So that was our go-to-market strategy.
Thank you. Do you have anything that you want to add?
No, they pretty much right on. Organic is the way to go. If something can grow organic, I mean, you can always pay to make it, to make it get on fire. But if you could get some organic traction, I think that's the way to go.
I think the other method to doing it is partnerships. People underestimate the value of partnerships. Find a whale in your business, and then you get right. Right? So you look at what Airbnb did, is that they found, before anybody knew who they were, they went to Craigslist and redirected most of Craigslist users to Airbnb. Right? So there's always a whale in your industry, so you got to find a way to ride it and make the best out of the user base that already exists. And if you can't find one, find organizations that have a huge reach within your industry, and try to tap into some sort of a partnership where it's a give and take relationship. You give them and they give you something back in return. But if I would start all over again, I would really focus on partnerships, because it's very easy to scale.
Awesome. Hello everyone, Gary Gito. I am founder of a consultancy that really focuses on ensuring that organizations like yourselves are really empowered to develop cohesive teams, and cohesive teams that can innovate, right? Because as I think all of you have spoken to, and Allan specifically, as you scale, as you grow, having a diverse team, and the research department has bared out that, and you've spoken to it, we have homogeneous teams, they can innovate easier than diverse teams, but diverse teams will get you a lot more innovation. So I wonder if you could, all of you, speak a little bit more about the challenges, right, to actually supporting your folks internally in developing the skills necessary to be effective managers, team members, to actually be productive, right, together as they're leveling up, right, what you want them to be doing for the organization.
Yeah, for that's a great question. I mean, for my company, it starts at the interviewing part, or the interviewing stage, right? So we, as part of the interviewing process, we let them know, whoever the candidate is, that when we are considering, whoever we're considering hiring, we don't want you just to be, come in at a certain level. We expect you to grow within the company, right? So if you come in, regardless of the position, if you come in and you're not a manager, or you're not a supervisor, you're not a C-suiter, then guess what? Like, at some point, if you're doing the right things, you'll be considered for one of those positions, right? So I think for us, it starts at the interviewing stage. And then, once we hire candidates, we continue that push, right? Whether that's through continuing education, whether that's to, you can go to this seminar, or you can take this course, whether it's a formal course, Coursera, whatever, Udemy, but continuing to educate them, educate the team member so they can get to the point, if they're not a supervisor, if they're not a manager yet, if they're not someone in the C-suite or a presidential level, whatever, they have the motivation and the tools that they would need to succeed at that stage in their career, right? Because at the end of the day, it's still like, we think about this from a career standpoint, right? It's not just we're hiring you for this position. We also want you to, we want you to continue to grow. We want to elevate you to the next position. And so what resources and what tools can we provide you so that you can do that, right? But it starts at the interviewing stage for us.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you said. You set the right expectation before someone walks through the door, and you make sure that they understand what your mission, vision, values, what do you stand for as an organization. And then once you have the people in, you have a very clear philosophy on how everybody should work together. Very important. Mission, vision, values, they are great, but you have to also be very, very clear about how those relationships should work. And then you should let the business, the organization itself should police itself, not managers policing people. So the organization should have very, very clear KPIs. We measure everything. It's hard to improve what you don't measure. So we try to measure everything and set very clear guidelines. So upon being hired at Actriv, you get what we call a success profile. And a success profile basically outlines a very clear journey. You as an employee joining the company, what should you expect of the company for the first 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and then in your journey as an employee in this particular role that you've joined the company, what is the maturity model look like? So how far could you climb up? So there's a very clear path for you that you know from day one, but at the same time, we also set very clear expectations. So what would, in this particular role, what are the KPIs? How do we measure your success? It's very difficult to hold someone accountable and ask them to do something when you've never defined how success looks like, right? So if success was a destination, how would that person know they made it there? And the way they do know that is by very clear either key performance indicators or early indicators of success. So once you have those things set up in your company for every position, even a receptionist, in our company, the receptionist has their KPIs. And there are certain things you can measure, but it's always good to have those intangibles. And then the entire company, every single person within the company has a shared mission towards the company's overall KPIs. So for us, our KPIs are usually care hours. How many care hours are we delivering into the community? It's not a dollar amount. It's amount we took our KPIs and turned them into something that is very impact driven. It's easy for even our customers to buy into a KPI that is more impact driven than revenue driven. So it's very, very important that you understand that. And for some of our employees, when they come in, some of them would care less if the company made $100 million, but some of them would care if the company generated over 100 million care hours that impacted people's lives. So measuring how you measure the organization's value to the ecosystem versus also the individual contribution to the organization truly matters a lot. So making sure that those parameters are set up very, very well from day one, and also making sure that the manager's job is just to make sure that everybody gets towards, works towards making sure that they live up to those expectations. And that's how you build an organization. It's very, very difficult to police people and try to get them to work hard. But if you just set up the parameters that show them that you could actually be successful, and if you are successful at this level, this is where you could go next, then the organization is just self-policing.
Yeah, pretty much what they said. For me, I just got to make sure everybody's on one accord, and then like I know my weakness, and me trying to manage people, that's kind of weakness for me because they always say I'm too hard on them. I don't really see that, you know what I mean? So I hired my brother, so he'd do all that for me. So I kind of just got to have somebody that's an expert in that field. It's just kind of let them deal with that.
Well, thank you all, and I really appreciate the idea of both being intentional and offering transparency to folks as they come in, and then scaffolding that they can continue to grow. So thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay, you guys, that concludes our events. But please feel free to stay and network. We have refreshments and pizza in the back, and I just want to thank everyone again for coming to our first R.I.S.E event by Caldwell. And I want to thank our lovely panelists one last time.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. You did a great job. Vote for James Jones for president.